He's our Lions insider, and he's on TV as well. Are you on tonight? I suspect you are.
Oh, we sure are. Yeah, we'll be live from 7 to 8 on Fox 2. We'll be on the second level of the concourse up by the Christmas tree. So come stop by and say what up if you're at Ford Field.
Have you guys done it from there before?
We did it last year, actually, on this same point in the schedule when they played the Packers Thursday night on the Fox 2 airwaves. So, yes, one time before. No one brought beer last time, though. So if anyone wants to swing by with a couple beers, feel free tonight.
This is so on brand. All right, so Kirby Joseph is listed as out. I don't know if that's a big surprise, but I guess Legion of Whom activate, huh?
Yeah, here we go again, right, with Terrion Arnold also down for the year. So, I mean, at least you have DJ Reed back in the mix. That obviously makes a huge difference, and he'll have the task of guarding one of Pickens or Lamb. Then it'll be Amik Robertson on the other side, and it's going to be more of Thomas Harper and Brian Branch in the back end. But, yeah, this Kirby story is tough, man, and it's become more than just a story about this season. It's also become sort of a subplot of the future. And when we spoke with Kirby Joseph this week, he did not paint a very optimistic picture about how this injury might hamper him, could possibly hamper him moving forward. And surgery, it sounds like, is not an option. When he was asked about his knee, he just said, yeah, my knee messed up, bro. And when he was asked if surgery can fix it, he said, you don't fix it. You just put it in God's hands. Now, it does sound like they're going to look into treatment options this offseason beyond surgery. But the Lions and Kirby Joseph now are in a bit of an uncomfortable position. This is a player who just signed a 4-year, $86 million extension this past offseason. It made him, briefly anyways, the highest paid safety in the NFL. That extension doesn't even kick in until next season. And if you look at the way the Lions structured it with almost all of the guaranteed money front-loaded, it can really boil down to a one-year deal if they wanted to. So, look, suddenly next season looms large for Kirby Joseph and in his future with this team. But more immediately, man, they miss him on the field. They really do. And I know that sounds like an obvious thing to say. And this is not meant as a knock on Thomas Harper, who I think has played pretty darn well in place of Kirby. But just go to two really costly plays last week. And one was on the 12 men on the field penalty before the 4th and goal touchdown, where if you look at that, the replay, it's Thomas Harper who has pounded his chest as if to say, my bad, after that penalty is called. Now, it was my bad on a number of guys, but when I asked Harper about it this week, he was just like, yeah, as the quarterback of the back end, I feel like it's my responsibility to be aware of the rotating corners and make sure everyone's lined up, and I should have been better there. And then maybe more glaringly on the 4th down touchdown to Dontavion Wicks, which might not have been a touchdown, but apparently it was, according to NFL rule. It was Thomas Harper who was there either a quarter second late or, as he told me, on time, but he made the mistake on 4th down of going for the interception rather than just breaking up the ball from man. Those are young player mistakes, and you feel like if you had Kirby on the field, he would have corrected or erased either one, maybe both of those, and you win the game. So, long way of saying, boys, they missed Kirby Joseph.
I read that Dallas had the most 30-plus yard pass plays in the NFL, and the Lions have given up the most. It's a Kelvin Shepard kind of game right here. The defensive coordinator spoke this week and spoke with a degree of resolve and confidence and almost embracing this challenge. Is this a game where they break out more zone? Is this a game where he's got something up his sleeve? I mean, how do they slow down this Dallas offense?
Zone is the answer to me, and I think in Kelvin Shepard's mind, too. He hinted at some changes in personnel and scheme that will help this pass rush, which has had a very hard time generating quick pressure. And I think the most obvious way to do that is to deploy some more zone coverage tonight. And just to add some more stats to the ones that you just listed, Karsch, George Pickens is first in the NFL this year in receiving yards against man coverage, and CeeDee Lamb is 5th, and I believe he's 3rd in yards per game. So if you're going to go deploy a bunch of man tonight with a pass rush that is taking 3, 4, sometimes 5 seconds to get home, you're cooked. Like, you are just going to be cooked. And it's no reflection on the corners, who I think have played really well in really challenging circumstances. They're going to have to find ways to have that secondary hold up if the pass rush isn't getting home tonight. And yes, I think it's I think it's more zone coverage. I think that's the most obvious adjustment for this defense against this quarterback and those receivers tonight.
Feels like a Hutch game. And quite frankly, it feels like all the edge rushers need to be impactful tonight against a backup left tackle. And another guy who's had his ups and downs, played better of late from what I read, but has had some coverage pressure issues giving up pressure. So, I mean, to the path to victory, I think almost goes through a big game from Aiden Hutchinson.
Totally agree. Big game from the defensive line. When I was asking Hutch about that this week, he took it head on and said, look, the defensive line has to affect this game if we want to win. And it's true, and it hasn't been true the past couple games. I mean, since I'll put it this way, over the last 16 quarters of regulation time football this team has played, their defensive ends as a unit have produced 1/2 of a sack. Like, that is untenable for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, that's currently on the outside of the playoff race looking in. And I know Aiden faces one of the highest rates of double teams and chips and nudges in the NFL. He also gets his fair share of one-on-ones every single week. And there were a number of them last week where, frankly, he just didn't do anything. And there were key downs, too. There were 4th downs against Zach Tom in one-on-ones where he just wasn't quick or powerful enough to get to Love. There were 3rd downs where the same thing was true. And I don't want to make this all about Hutchinson because Lord knows the guys around him haven't done nearly enough themselves. But he is your bell cow. He is your guy. He is your version of Micah Parsons, say. And lately, he just hasn't been generating enough quick pressure. I think one thing, guys, that last week and the week before really hammered home to all of us is that all quarterback pressures are not created equal. And the Lions as a team had 2 more quarterback pressures last week than the Packers did. And yet the Packers had 3 more sacks. And part of that is just the inherent difference in Micah Parsons and Aiden Hutchinson. Parsons, I think we can all agree, is a tier above Aiden as a pure pass rusher. But it also speaks to the fact that when the Lions generate pressure and they're credited for pressure, it's generally taking them much longer than it is other teams. Like last week, Jordan Love had at least 2.5 seconds to throw on 2/3 of his dropbacks, the 5th highest rate in the NFL. The week prior, Jameis Winston had that much time or more on 3/4 of his dropbacks, the highest rate in the NFL. So if you're not going to win your one-on-ones, maybe another adjustment is blitzing more. That's obviously going to expose you against those receivers, but something has to change for this defense and this pass rush to get right.
What's your gut telling you about Amon-Ra St. Brown tonight?
Oh, man. Can you ask me again in like 4 hours? Here's what I would say. They're definitely going to take this decision all the way up to the deadline around 6:30, 90 minutes before kickoff. And the biggest thing that gives me pause is that St. Brown said high ankle sprain that was very similar to this one that he suffered back in 2022 in a game against the Vikings wasn't as severe as the one he suffered last Thursday. And yet that high ankle sprain from which he returned in that game still cost him the next week's game against Seattle. And he said this one was more painful. He couldn't even put pressure on the ankle and consider a return last week. And so it's just hard to imagine that if a lesser injury cost him a game 3 years ago, a more severe one wouldn't have the same effect this year. But look, given the state of this team and the stakes of this game, if he's even 75%, I'm of the belief that it's worth letting him rip. Now, they might view it differently. They might think, let's get him basically a double bye with the extra 10 days off before next week's game. But I just don't know if they can afford to do that in a game that sure feels like it's going to take a lot of points to win.
Can the interior of the offensive line hold up against this interior of the Dallas defensive line, which has obviously got the huge upgrade with Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark this year? I mean, that's $1 million question. And I suppose even if they can't, then they got to get the ball out quickly, and they got to get Gibbs on the edge in the run game.
Yeah, totally agree. And this is a reimagined Cowboys defense. Felt like for so many years it's built around the edges with DeMarcus Lawrence and then obviously Micah Parsons. And now you look in the middle and you just got 2 behemoths. I thought Jared Goff said it pretty well this week. He's like, look, if you want to run away from Quinnen, you're running into Kenny. And if you want to run away from Kenny, guess what? You're running into Quinnen. And Coyote Awasika missed practice yesterday, and that's concerning. It sounds like he suffered a foot injury at some point in practice on Tuesday. He's questionable for tonight. If he can't go, maybe it's Cologne at left guard, maybe it's Nice at left guard, maybe it's Miles Frazier making his season debut at left guard. I think I would go in that direction and see what you have if Yodi can't go, but I agree. The pivot point of tonight's game is Tate Ratledge, Graham Glasgow, and fill in the blank versus those two big boys up front. I don't know if that makes fans feel all that great. I think one reassuring thing here is Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell obviously have played really well this year. I don't know if Decker has gotten quite enough credit for how well he has played in the face of some really trying circumstances. Like, this isn't a guy who's just grinding through and giving you what he's got each week. This is a guy who told me this week he feels like he's playing maybe the best ball of his career. So, I don't know, just a hat tip here to Taylor Decker, who is, guys, to be honest, like after a recent game, he said he was asked how he would feel about a knee injury that I think he had suffered. And he was like, I really won't know until these pain meds wear off at some point later in the middle of the night tonight. And so when he woke up at 3, 4 in the morning that night, he kind of had to shuffle to the bathroom and he realized, all right, yeah, I should be good to go this week. But just that's a glimpse into what he is dealing with and overcoming to play every single week and playing really darn well in the process.
Final thing, the question for the audience has been, do they save their season tonight and who is the hero? You're around this team and you can see when things aren't quite right or not the same as they have been, but they've always responded in this spot. And the whole thing that Dan Campbell preached about grit has been applicable in these times. Do they bounce back tonight, Birchie? And if so, who's the hero?
I don't think they do, boys. I made the mistake last week of picking with my gut over my logic. I thought that game on paper last week pretty clearly favored the Packers. I just thought Dan Campbell would will his team to victory. Ultimately, it was Matt LaFleur who kind of beat Campbell at his own game, and I feel the same way about this matchup. I just see too many advantages for Dallas and too many deficits for the Lions in their personnel right now for them to overcome. If they do win, and I think it's possible, if they do win, Isaac Tesla would be my hero. I thought last week you saw signs of what he can do as a secondary option in this passing attack with St. Brown down, Laporta down, Khalif Raymond down. I love the way he kind of ad-libbed and improvised on his touchdown. He told me he's preparing to play basically the whole game tonight, so read into that what you will regarding St. Brown's status. They will need to get him the ball, and they'll need to get him the ball in the red zone and on third down. And if they do, I think he can make an impact on this game without having to catch more than, say, 3 or 4 passes.
Birchie, you're the best. Thank you. As always, see you tonight on Fox 2. Hey, big weekend of college puck. Michigan and Michigan State, number 1 and 3 in the country.
Woo! Let's go, baby. This is the state of hockey. Hockey town, hockey state. Let's go.
We'll talk again next week.
All right, see you, boys.
There he is. Will Burchfield, our Lions insider, joins us every week here on 97.1 The Ticket.